On the night before Thanksgiving, 1971, a composed and well-dressed stranger boarded a commercial flight in Portland, Oregon. And somewhere over the dark forests of southwest Washington, he stepped off the back of that plane into a cold, storm-black sky. He carried $200,000 in marked ransom money strapped to his body, and the wilderness below him swallowed him whole. What he left behind on seat 18E, a black clip-on tie, and 8 cigarette butts, would become some of the most studied objects in the history of American law enforcement. The FBI pursued thousands of suspects across 45 years and closed the case in 2016, without ever answering the only question that has always mattered. Who was he, and what happened to him? It remains to this day the only unsolved commercial airplane hijacking in American history. Over the course of this investigation, we will lay every piece of evidence on the board: the money, the parachutes, the tie, the riverbank, the storms. And we will look at them together. By the time we are done, you will know what the investigators knew, and you will be able to weigh it for yourself. Chapter 1. The Man in Seat 18E. November 24th, 1971. Northwest Orient Flight 305 departs Portland, Oregon, bound for Seattle. A 30-minute hop on a busy Thanksgiving Eve. 36 passengers settle into their seats, ordinary people heading home for the holiday. In seat 18E, a man sits alone. Dark business suit, dark tie, dark sunglasses, a bourbon and soda on his tray. He had paid cash for his ticket, $20 exact, and asked for no receipt. Shortly after takeoff, he passed a folded note to flight attendant Florence Schaffner. She almost pocketed it, assuming it was a flirtatious gesture, a routine hazard of the job. He leaned toward her and said quietly, "Miss, you'd better look at that note." The note told her he had a bomb in his briefcase. He opened the case just enough. Red cylinders, a tangle of wires, a flat rectangular object. His demands were precise. $200,000 in cash, 4 parachutes, and a fuel truck waiting in Seattle. Think about that precision for a moment. 4 parachutes, not 2, not 1. What does it tell us about his plan, or about what, or who he wanted authorities to think? When authorities ran the name he gave, Dan Cooper, it matched no passenger record, no known identity, no living person. Let's open the board. The location: Pacific Northwest, USA, and unknown. The hijacker suspect. Chapter 2. A perfectly executed demand. November 24th, 1971. Northwest Orient Flight 305 lifted off from Portland, Oregon, bound for Seattle. Shortly after takeoff, the man in seat 18E passed a handwritten note to a flight attendant. She read it, and her composure broke. The note claimed he had a bomb in his briefcase. He opened it just long enough. A tangle of wires, red cylinders, and a 9-volt battery. His demands were precise: $200,000 in unmarked $20 bills and 4 parachutes. The plane circled Seattle for 2 hours, while authorities on the ground scrambled to meet every condition. At Seattle-Tacoma Airport, the money and the chutes were loaded aboard. All 36 passengers were then released onto the tarmac, and Cooper did not follow. He remained calm, unhurried, methodical, as crew and agents monitored his every word. But here is the detail that has haunted investigators for more than 50 years. He asked for 4 parachutes, not one. 1 man, 1 jump. So what do you make of that number? Was a second person always part of the plan? The answer, investigators feared, was that someone else on that plane may never have had a choice. On the board so far, unknown, the hijacker, suspect. Now we pin up Florence Schaffner, the flight attendant. Chapter 3. The Open Staircase. It was the night of November 24th, 1971, and Northwest Orient Flight 305 was somewhere above the black wilderness of southwest Washington. The Boeing 727 carried a feature almost no one on the ground was thinking about: a rear airstair that could be lowered in flight. No hijacker before Cooper had ever thought to use it. At approximately 8:13 p.m., the crew detected a change in pressure. The airstair had been lowered. Outside, the temperature was -7 degrees Celsius, and winds screamed past at 200 miles per hour. Somewhere in that roaring dark, D.B. Cooper jumped. When agents boarded the plane after it landed in Reno, they found the rear cabin exactly as he had left it. On the seat he had occupied, there was a single black clip-on tie. Beside it, a mother-of-pearl tie clip caught the light. 8 cigarette butts were collected from the ashtray at his seat. Think about what those objects tell us. A man deliberate enough to remove his tie, yet who left everything behind without apparent panic. What does that careful calm tell you about who this man really was, and what he had done before? On the board so far, Florence Schaffner, the flight attendant. Now we pin up William Ratatzak, the co-pilot, and Nov 24, 1971, Cooper hijacks Flight 305, Portland. Chapter 4. What the Tie Remembers. When the passengers deplaned in Seattle, one item remained on seat 18E, a black clip-on tie. Cooper had removed it himself, deliberately, before the plane ever left Portland. To investigators in 1971, a forgotten tie was a loose thread, nothing more. It sat in storage for decades. In 2001, the FBI submitted the tie clip to forensic analysts for the first serious examination of its surface residue. What they found was not ordinary. Embedded in the tie's fibers were rare titanium particles consistent with aerospace and heavy industrial manufacturing of the late 1960s. Titanium of this specific composition was uncommon, found primarily in facilities producing aircraft components and specialized aerospace hardware. This man had been somewhere that left a permanent trace on the things he wore. We add the tie to the evidence board, and it changes the shape of everything around it. Think about what you know so far. If this man moved through the aerospace world, if he understood aircraft from the inside out, what does that do to your theory about how carefully this was planned? Because a man who knows exactly how a Boeing 727 is built also knows precisely where its limits end and where a parachute can begin. On the board so far, Nov 24, 1971, Cooper hijacks Flight 305, Portland. Now we pin up Nov 24, 1971, ransom delivered, passengers released, Seattle. Chapter 5. Money in the Mud. February 10th, 1980. The Columbia River at Tina Bar, Washington. An 8-year-old boy named Brian Ingram is digging in the sand with his family. His fingers close around something solid, rotted, and bound. 3 packets of $20 bills, partially disintegrated, rubber bands still clinging to them. The serial numbers matched exactly. $5,800 from the original $200,000 ransom. 9 years had passed since the night of the hijacking. The FBI mapped Tina Bar immediately against the flight path of Northwest Orient 305. The money was found miles downstream and west of the FBI's primary search and landing zones. No other ransom bill has ever been recovered, before or since. Now, consider this with me. If Cooper landed where the FBI believed, the money cannot be where it was found. Did the river carry the bills there over 9 years? Or was the money never where anyone expected to begin with? The soil beneath the bills told its own story. And it was not the story investigators wanted to hear. On the board so far, NOV 24, 1971. Ransom delivered, passengers released, Seattle. Now we pin up NOV 24, 1971. Cooper parachutes over SW, Washington. Chapter 6. The Jump Nobody Should Survive. At 8:13 p.m. on November 24th, 1971, somewhere over the Cascade Mountains, a man stepped into nothing. The outside air temperature was approximately -7 degrees Celsius. Freezing rain was falling across the drop zone at the moment of the jump. Visibility was effectively zero. Below him lay the Washougal River watershed, dense, old-growth Douglas fir, ravines dropping hundreds of feet, terrain that swallows a person whole. Cooper wore loafers, thin-soled dress shoes entirely unsuited to the landing that awaited him. The parachute Cooper chose was a military reserve chute. Functional, but with no steering capability. FBI survival consultants, reviewing the conditions in 1972, quietly concluded that survival was extremely unlikely. Search teams combed thousands of acres over 4 decades and found no body, no parachute, no gear. Of the $200,000 he carried, only $5,800 in decomposed bills turned up on the bank of the Columbia River in 1980. Think about what you're holding now. A man the FBI called almost certainly dead, and a wilderness that gave back almost nothing. If he died in those mountains, why does the forest refuse to confirm it? On the board so far, NOV 24, 1971. Cooper parachutes over SW, Washington. Now we pin up Feb 1980. Marked ransom bills found. Columbia River and a key clue. Black clip-on tie. Seat 18E. Chapter 7. 45 years. No answer. The FBI opened its D.B. Cooper file on November 24th, 1971. The same night, the man vanished. Over 4 decades, investigators pursued more than 1,000 named suspects. Each lead arrived with urgency and left in silence. Richard McCoy, Jr. was named a person of interest in 1972 after copying the hijack almost exactly 4 months later. Investigators ultimately ruled him out. Dozens of other persons of interest followed across the 1980s, 1990s, and 2000s, each investigation eventually folding. In July 2016, the FBI formally suspended active investigation. The Bureau cited the need to redirect resources, but the file was never closed. It remains the only unsolved commercial airplane hijacking in American history. Now we lay every clue side by side. A phantom name no passenger recognized, a tie that remembered its owner's profession, and scattered bills found miles from any planned route. And we lay beside them the wilderness itself, dense, cold, and completely indifferent, which held whatever happened next. Look at the board with us. Which of these pieces feels wrong to you? And what does that wrongness tell us about what this man actually knew? On the board so far, a key clue: black clip-on tie, seat 18E. Now we pin up a key clue: $5,800 marked ransom bills. Chapter 8. Your Theory, the Final Clue. Every piece of evidence is now on the board. A man boarded Northwest Orient Flight 305 on November 24th, 1971. He carried a briefcase, made a demand, and collected $200,000 in marked bills. He clipped on a parachute, opened the rear staircase at altitude, and vanished into the dark. The terrain below, the Cascade Range in late November, was nearly unsurvivable. In 1980, a boy named Brian Ingram found 3 packets of the marked bills along the Columbia River at Tina Bar. The bills were degraded, but the serial numbers matched perfectly. No other bills from a bundle of 10,000 have ever been recovered. The tie he left behind held rare metallite particles that pointed toward an industrial background. Now, what do you make of the money's location, given the drop zone and the river's known current patterns? After 50 years, the FBI closed its active investigation in 2016, but the case file remains open. Construct your own theory: the timeline, the jump point, the fate, and share your reasoning, because the next breakthrough may come from someone watching right now. On the board so far, a key clue: $5,800 marked ransom bills. Now we pin up a key clue: 8 Raleigh cigarette butts.